I am at the Red House once again with Will Easter. What up, buddy?
Number two.
Number two, back at it. Back at it in the brown boots.
The brown chair, brown boots.
How have you been?
Not bad. Taking it pretty easy for the winter.
You just mentioned that when we were kind of catching up a little bit. You said you were getting back to living life.
Mm-hmm.
What does that consist of for Will Easter?
Really working without having to rush to a show and then coming home, hanging out with Katie. And not having to just worry. I mean, it's booking season right now, so I do have to worry about that, but it's not like full blown, just 100 miles an hour all the time. That's what this past year kind of felt like from April till about the end of October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have met Marvel. She's a puppy. She loves to act like a puppy.
That's so funny.
Yeah. She loves that thing. So, when you were coming over, when you were coming over, I was trying to think of things that we might talk about. And first thing that came to mind today, for some reason, was I want to talk to you about the craft a little bit, and just to ask maybe some of the obvious questions that people might ask about the craft. But I rarely actually take the opportunity to talk about the craft of songwriting and musicianship, in particular. So, let me ask you, where a song, as far as you know, where it starts to be born.
It's usually an emotion that's already happening in my life or experience, I guess. At least in the past, that's kind of how it's been. And then that goes to, paper, or it goes to a memo in your phone, or it goes to guitar. Like the idea, I can typically what I've done in the past, in recent years, is I'll have an idea and kind of just mumble some lyrics or a tune into my phone, and then kind of go from there. Or when I was doing a little bit more songwriting than I am now, back in 2020 and early 2021, I would just kind of start on a song, take a little bit of a break when I started feeling like nothing was happening, come back to it the next day, and then go from there. And if something comes of it, it does, and if not, that's just the way it goes sometimes. I want to write more for the sake of writing, as a practice. I look at it kind of like football practice or going to the gym. You just do it to stay in just in the function of it. Just keep your brain moving and looking for stuff to write about, or not necessarily stuff to write about, but just keep your brain moving. Keep the gears grease, if you will. But yeah, where it comes from is usually just like an emotion or experience that I'm having. I would like to kind of get away from that, in a way. I don't know. There's only so many things you can say about yourself, and that's how I do write a lot of the time. Is things that I am seeing or experiencing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was thinking about something along those lines, not, I guess, terribly long ago, about writing about self. Yeah, that's a thing that it seems that it's assumed about most songwriters.
Right.
That all the songs are autobiographical,
right.
That, they, whatever. And there does seem like there are examples that come to mind, I think, of great songs that either of us might know that tap into something larger, like all of humanity or something.
Yeah.
I love the personal aspect too. When you talk about wanting to do something different, what is it you're picturing? Like,
I think some about like John Prine. He there wasn't a lot of songs he did write about himself. One is for example, like he's always writing in third person. It seems like from the outside looking in, or just telling a story about someone else, but living in the future. I've had that on repeat since the beginning of December, because I told my band, I was like, we have to write that, or we have to perform this song and learn it. But that one, the opening line's talking about a cat that died. And I think it's a little bit more. I'm not saying that anybody that doesn't write about thinking the third person isn't creative, but for me, the creative challenge now is to be, not necessarily write about what I'm feeling, but what I think somebody else would feel from like perspective of them, or I've kind of gotten into reading a little bit again recently, and just kind of taking stories from what I'm reading and seeing where I can go from there, or take like a different approach, like a different era of time that like something's happening. BJ Barham kind of done that in his not most recent record, but the record before the last one. He wrote about he said it was like a concept record about the book of Leviticus, which I honestly don't know much about the book of Leviticus, but yeah, I guess it talks about or no, sorry, not Leviticus, Lamentations. That makes a lot more sense now. But yeah, it's just talking about that from like the Southern perspective of working class folks and all that, which is I think a kind of an interesting take to do.
Yeah.
Take an old story and kind of bring it into modern perspective.
That's interesting. It seems like that's the cool thing to do in Americana and Roots right now or whatever.
Yeah. I was being original doing that.
I was reading something about Tyler Childers, and he was like, "Oh, and then, I mean, he's been doing it for a while, but something about kind of trying to embody the voice of his people, of like Kentucky miners and shit.
I think everybody coming out of Kentucky right now kind of in a way does that.
Yeah.
Just wait it seems, but yeah, sorry. What were you?
That's it.
Oh.
Other than Stapleton, I guess Stapleton is like true and through Kentucky boy, but more obviously in the Nashville world. But.
Yeah, he definitely does have more of like a Nashville, not perspective, but style of writing. It seems like because he's written. It surprises the hell out of me how many songs he's written, like hit country songs he's written that aren't even his at all, or aren't put out as his.
Yeah.
Other folks buy them from him. And man, he's just so good. He's one of the more mainstream guys that I really, really enjoy listening to because he's just a heck of a songwriter in general. Things he puts together into words and have it make sense is just amazing to me.
Yep, I'm totally with you. I was working, but I was playing at a cousin's wedding, and I was driving around Galax, and I think it was the first time I ever actually listened to that song, You Should Probably Leave.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck, I was driving up 89, and I was like, this song is so perfectly crafted. And I hadn't even got to the end yet with the whole twisting around of that phrase. And then you get to the end and it's just it just reverses it and it's like, man, that's he's such a craft.
Yeah.
He has such control over his craft.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I love Stapleton.
He's one that I really want to listen to more, just for that purpose. I want to get out of the habit of just throwing on Spotify or going to whatever John Prine radio or whatever I'm listening to right now for long. I feel like for the past 3 years I'm just been stuck listening to the same stuff as with the algorithm.
Yeah.
That Spotify just keeps feeding you. And I was telling somebody the other day, I just there's some songs that I just hate now because Spotify throws it on after I listen to it. So one particular song. One example of that is Outfit by Drive-By Truckers or Jason Isbell. That was one that I love that song and Spotify just ran it to the ground. It comes on now. I'm just nope. Sorry.
Yeah. It's a bummer when they do that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Chris is one of those guys I want to listen to more just to kind of get a little more inspiration and idea of his craft and try to incorporate it in some, or try to have it influence me in some sort of way.
Dude, have you listened to much of the Steel Drivers or of him with the Steel Drivers?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Some of his shit with the Steel Drivers is just some of the, some really great written songs.
Yeah.
One in particular being, fucking that song. Oh, one of my favorite songs in the world is that song about sticks that made thunder. You know that one?
Talking about a gun?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's God, what is the name of that song? I'm totally spacing now, but yes, I know exactly what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
it's like from a tree's perspective, watching the Civil War
Yes.
happen,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, holy shit! Like that, who? Nobody would
Yeah.
think to do that. Like
Yeah.
nobody would think to write that song, but it's
Yeah.
so interesting. And I like when I come across like mighty big old 300-year-old trees or whatever. You know, like it's fascinating how old they are, and you think like, oh, like my grandfather used to have one in his yard. He would say this thing was probably here when like Indians were here or when Native Americans were
Yeah.
here, more
Yeah.
appropriately. And yeah, you know, you that thought might cross your mind, but then the thought to write a song that depicts that tree looking at
Looking
the
into
Civil
that.
War
Yeah.
take place.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. That is pretty wild. Well, it's just associated with what I was talking about, like even with B.J. Barham writing Lamentations. It's kind of, I don't know, it's pretty cool just to like how, what triggers that in somebody's mind to do that, you know?
Yeah.
It's really cool. At this point, I don't think to do that when I'm writing songs at all. I would love to. That'd be really
Sometimes
cool.
it's interesting because you are guided by some sort of emotion, but when you talk about being guided by first an emotion, are you talking about you have a feeling that you're trying like can maybe you can just unpack that a little like what you mean by starting with an emotion?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess writing is kind of like my diary in a way. It's how I get my thoughts and feelings out. And I guess for an example of what I'm saying when it's an emotion, there's a song that I have. It's called "My Good Enough Ain't Good Enough for You," and I was having a hard time with an employer at the time, and I was busting ass at work, like learning a new skill and like starting to run like a crew and all that. Or I'd have people work under me, and it was a very rushed process and all that. Just to you learn this skill, you're under the crew in a very short amount of time, and I was like doing my very best I could do, and this employer was just like giving me all kinds of shit, and I was like, dude, like what the hell? So I went home, excuse me, and started writing the song. And the first, I don't have a very clear picture of when it actually first started, but I guess you know to get the story across, like like the just my good enough ain't good enough for you kind of came to my head. Like anything I do is just not good enough at all for this guy right now, and that's kind of what came from it. And so it's I guess not necessarily an emotion, or it's more of like an emotion about what you're experiencing at the time, and that just kind of went from there because it goes on to talk about you can. You can build a house, but it won't always stand, which is like, associated a very artistic way of saying that like my boss in the construction field doesn't like what I do. But you know what? Even in 1,000 years, dude, that house is going to be gone. And and the next line is, one day we'll crumble to little grains of sand, but my words, they'll go on and on as long as someone gives a damn. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, because, like a structure, it could last, centuries as well. But even like somebody's words and what's important to them could last just as long, if not longer. Mm-hmm. So that's a cool line to kind of
absolutely
put in there,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. But I mean, I don't think that is like far different in writing terms from the idea of like writing from the perspective of a tree. It just happened to be your experience with that thing,
yeah,
instead of this totally other.
Right, and that somebody could listen to that song and they could be like, man, I got a shitty boss too.
I guarantee you that
or they,
happens.
Yeah, right. Or they could be listening to the song and they could be like, man, this reminds me of my relationship with my dad, or something, whatever it is, like, because I do like to write in that way. It's vague enough that you can kind of put yourself in the perspective.
Yeah.
Or whoever's listening to it can put themselves in the perspective of the song.
Yeah.
Or the song's experience and what it's talking about.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think for a lot of people, that tends to be more the like when we're talking about sort of abstract ideas versus describing real life scenarios that people relate to. I think, broadly speaking, that they prefer the shit that they can relate to on like a human level.
Yeah.
You know.
Just Sims world himself into that. Yeah.
Not that either is superior, because like that Thunder song, the Civil War song, the trees watching the Civil War.
Yeah.
There's a utility to it for sure, but not the same kind of utility, I think, as like a human relating to another human. That's the shit that people always say is what they love about music. It seems like
it's what moves them the most, because it's what we experience more than an object, or something alive in the woods.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Definitely.
So I mean, all that to say, don't totally disregard all the all the auto-bio stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is nice to do that as well.
I forgot to ask what I meant to ask, which was, is there anybody else in the sort of mainstream world that you kind of like?
I guess that kind of like varies now, because there's this different world of country, or it feels like there's two worlds of country right now. There's your top 40 Nashville style country, which is what you're going to hear on the radio, and those people are very, very successful. Mm-hmm. And there's also these singer-songwriters that have worked their way up, like you and I, and gotten, turned down by hometown venues or whatever, and they could easily have been like, fuck all this, going to get a job like everybody else. But
yeah,
they stick through it, and they stick to their own craft, and they found success in it. And that's the country that I kind of like. And it's turned into mainstream. Like Tyler Childers, you have guys like me that kind of lean more towards this original singer-songwriter kind of music. But you also have like your good old boys that'll go and listen to him as well. That's the sweet spot to be, I think. Whoever thinks to do that and can actually do it, you're doing pretty well, because you're kind of appealing to both those in the country music world. I think the best example right now, more of a modern sort of, or not modern, but more recent, is 49 Winchester. Those guys, holy shit, they've kind of blown me away in the past. I don't know if you ever listened.
Don't know them.
Okay, check them out. They're really good. They won Artist in the Rise at Floyd Fest 2 years ago in 2021. But what I really love about those guys is they have a really good sound, just very talented guys, but they've kind of done what I was saying, like people like Tyler and Sturgill and all that did. They stuck to their guns, and they've stuck through it and didn't really sell out, or go the easy route. I guess I shouldn't say sell out. Like, they didn't go the easy route and like just go buy songs from somebody that sits in a cubicle in Nashville.
Yeah.
Which, not knocking that either. People make money doing it. It's just not my thing. But those guys, they're doing what they were doing 2-3 years ago, what I'm doing now. So it's one of those things where you can see the light of like sticking through it and all that.
Yeah.
But those guys, I think they signed on the New West Records. I think right after they won Floyd Fest, they signed on the New West. They could have already signed and all that. I don't know. I guess it really doesn't matter. But like, it seems like in the past like 2 years, those guys have went from like what folks like you and I do to like huge stuff.
I need to check them out.
Yeah. I saw like they posted something like a few months ago, and it's they've caught Luke Combs' attention, which is once again top 40 country kind of guy. Not necessarily my thing, but I don't knock him for doing what he does. But he's a fan of them, which is really cool. Like, he has like a shirt and all that. Yeah. To see, like I said, guys that were doing 2 years ago what we're doing
Yeah.
to have the biggest name in mainstream country music like you would. It's pretty damn cool.
It is very cool. Man, I've been thinking a lot about a lot of the shit that is in touch with. Because man, I'm trying to find like kind of a new spark. I'm trying to find like some new motivation to build on, and that's that reality, man. The fact that honestly, it's just like it's such a narrow margin of like people who were doing this 2 years ago. People who are in this world where they're just trying to find that little bit of a foot up into that other space.
Yeah.
And it's not as I just there's something in my head being like, man, it's not as far off as you think. I think for a long time in my own mind, I've been telling myself like it's this territory that's like off limits, or I don't know exactly how to put it into words, but I've been feeling negatively about where that is. And I'm starting to feel more, I don't know, like optimistic about that shit.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I mean, I would think did what you did at Merlefest, like that's you're working towards something.
Oh yeah, that's kind of the plan. It's just to make something out of it. I'm not. I was talking to Katie on the way down here. I'm not guaranteed to have a successful career in this at all. It's a pretty big margin, to not.
Yeah.
But I'm still gonna try. And if there comes a day where I'm like, I don't need to pursue this in the way that I thought, I'm fine with that. Right now I do want to make a career out of it, still. But my life's not going to be over if I don't. I'm always going to be a songwriter. That's part of me that I'm never going to get rid of. It's talent I have been given, and it's always going to be part of me.
Yeah.
To the day I die, it will be. But it's I don't know. I don't have to have it as a career, even though that would be really cool to actually be pretty successful with it.
Yeah. How old are you?
Turned 29 last month.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Actually, what's today? Not the 29th.
Today's
I turned 29 on December 29th. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's almost a month.
28.
28. Yeah. There we go.
Damn. Yeah, man. Enjoy that 29th year, bro.
Yeah, right. It's funny, and I don't mean to keep on referring to BJ Barham, but he has a song that he put out called "The Losing Side of 25," and the idea, he said his thought was like he gave himself until 30 for music, and I don't know when. I guess around 2015 they started finding some success, and it might have been before 30. I really don't know, but that's kind of, in a way, kind of my perspective. And I'm like, man, 30. I'm like, nah, I'm going to keep on doing it until I just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. I think at one point I think I assumed that by 30 I would be somewhere different.
Yeah.
I'm 33 now, and I think in my head I've been kind of confronting. It'd be hard to picture myself at 40 still with this mentality of like, oh, one of these days or something or whatever.
Yeah, I've had that thought a lot.
Yeah.
A lot in the past year. Yeah.
I think like right now I'm thinking of it differently. I'm thinking of it like I'm not thinking of it like a hope or a whatever. Like I'm trying to be more intentional about just owning what I'm intending to do with my life and understanding it as a pursuit and like as a venture instead of thinking of it as like a whim or something.
Yeah.
But that means I've got a lot to do between now and 40 or whatever.
Right.
It means I got a lot of work to do. But yeah, if I was at 40 looking like feeling like I did at 23, like with that same mentality of like, someday I hope good things happen without the plan behind that.
Yeah.
That would be devastating to me, I think.
Yeah. Well, you think you would grow, the hope is you grow, between that age too. We're not going to be the same people. I don't think it's a very naive perspective at 23 or whenever you want to start something, but I do think you know, you change, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I kind of lost the thought.
Well, there's also this thing about music too that makes it, it's more like being a guy, being a fucking lumberjack or something than like managing a business or something, you know. So like, if your goal is by the time I'm at a certain age in life, I want to be the CEO of a significantly sized business.
Right.
Age, I don't think is as much of a factor to that because like the you know that's going to be a certain amount of time.
Right.
But in this business,
Yeah.
we're talking about I don't know. There's something about this idea of the younger artist versus the older. I think
Yeah.
the older artist is viewed as like this person is kind of living their legacy. Like maybe they don't have as much grit in what they have to say as like a 30-year-old man does. Like a
Yeah.
30-year-old man still is trying to change the world.
Yeah.
And like a 60-year-old man is like, fuck that shit.
Yeah,
You know?
I only got a few more decades left. I'm not changing nothing. I'm not going to work that hard to change it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think of like Levon and John Prine and Johnny Cash. Like the material they made was this like beautiful swan song that had all these different moods to it, you know. But
Yeah.
it wasn't like they didn't feel the way I feel when I make something and I'm like
Yeah.
hungry for it to succeed, you know. What I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
They were past that point.
Right, yeah, they had found the success with it.
Exactly.
Which I think there's a beauty in that, too. Like, you're just like, I'm not going to say it's effortless because I think writing a song, there's obviously effort put into it, but it's they're not like, man, if this isn't like a hit, they're not going to be devastated or whatever. You know, if it doesn't like propel their career, they're not. They've made it.
Yeah.
They've made it. They haven't said all they need to say, but they said enough. You know, that's like, I don't know. You bring up John Prine and his record, Tree of Forgiveness. Like, he didn't have to put that out to make anything of himself, but man, I'm glad he did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can kind of, you can see he saw more, you know, being like mortality. Like he saw the end in some sort of way. I mean, he survived cancer twice, so he saw some sort of end, or death coming at some point. Not saying
Yeah.
he was like depressed or anything, but you can tell he was kind of like coming to terms with life in that record.
Man, we've made me think of something that I've almost thought of this before, but this is the first time it's ever really taken shape. I've made comments in my life about like, oh, you know, no one says, oh, have you heard that new Rolling Stones album? Or have you heard that new like Bon Jovi album? Like
Yeah.
those guys, they were relevant in that way when they were young,
Right.
and now they just kind of live off of the iconography, or whatever, of
Right.
their being,
Yeah.
like Kiss or whatever.
Yeah.
But in this part of the industry, that's different. Like with all three of those dudes, with Johnny
Yeah.
Cash and Levon and Prine, like I don't know if it's this genre of music or what that is, but yeah, it happens to be a part of the music world where those albums are still relevant. Like the fact that they put out albums where like, oh, I have to hear what that is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
If the Rolling Stones put out something today, I wouldn't fucking listen to it probably.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest with you.
Yeah. Sorry, Jagger.
He does. He listens to this podcast a lot.
You know, it's so funny. Actually. Oh my god.
That would be amazing. Actually. He's like, fuck you guys. And here I was about to stream your music on Spotify.
Nope, not you, Tyler. Not you, Will. Sorry. You talk shit about my record. You're not gonna listen to my record.
Will Easter, more like won't Easter.
Oh my, that makes perfect sense though. Like, that's like I heard a couple years ago or 3 years ago now that the Foo Fighters put out a record, and they were, I don't know if it was on WNCW or what station it was on. I don't know why WCW advertising that. It's not necessarily the vein of music they're in, but it was NPR or something. And it was Dave Grohl talking about, we went and wrote this record, and it's like a style we've never written in before. And I was like, I'll give it a listen. And I turned it on, and it was like Foo Fighters.
Yeah, of course. He's a fun. I remember a few years ago, I saw something like a promo for something he was involved in, like a TV show.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was so funny to me because people who aren't from this region, I feel like, have no fucking idea what the world still consists of. And I thought this was context for that. He was like, we hear about blues music. And I thought, like, oh, that's from like 100 years ago. But some of these guys are still alive in the South. So I'm going to go find them and interview them. And then he's like, so you play guitar with like a bottleneck? And they're like, yeah. We were poor.
Yeah.
And he's
That's
like,
all we
that's
had.
crazy.
Hey, girl.
And I'm just like, man, you're embarrassing yourself.
Yeah.
There's
Showing how out of touch you are.
Yeah, I'm sure in Portland, there's other people that are like, I had no idea. But like around here, like we know that shit.
Yeah.
Like, get in touch with the rest of the music world, I guess.
Right.
Mainstream. I'm sorry. We are doing a good job of covering a lot of, but I keep forgetting what the fuck we're talking about. Midland. Have you fucked with them?
Oh yeah, dude. They are really, really cool.
Yeah.
My drummer Gabe got me really
Yeah.
big into them, and it's funny because they sound like a top 40. I mean, they are a top 40 country band, but they're like cool. You know?
They are. That's what I love about that.
Yeah.
It's like they're so throwback. Like their songs writing style is so retro. Their wardrobe is so retro.
Yeah.
They party.
I think that's the reason that my drummer mainly likes them. And so, because he focuses a lot on wardrobe.
Yeah.
He'll show up to a show and I'm like, "You're wearing that?"
I
it's
like
cool.
it.
It's really cool. Yeah, and I don't get into it like that. I'll show up to a show and this.
Yeah.
Or, I remember one time I showed up to the Brewer's Kettle and for whatever reason, I didn't get to go home and change. I just showed up in my work clothes and played there one day, like with like paint and drywall on my boots and all that. So
That makes it real.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. I think sometimes, like, I love that about Midland.
Oh yeah,
It's interesting. I feel like female artists often are the ones who do way more expression with their clothes and stuff and wardrobe and shit. And that was like cool for dudes in the 70s or something.
yeah,
And in the 80s, I guess, but we've gotten so far away from that. And like it feels like very uncommon, with Midland being one of maybe a handful of exceptions that might come to mind.
yeah.
And I don't know, I just think I fucking like clothes, but it's like there's just weird inability to talk about that.
Right.
Like, I love this fucking wool shirt and I'm wearing it, and it's like, why is it weird? Like, why is it weird to like clothes and
Right.
shit? Why is it weird to be into wardrobe?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should give it more thought. I usually don't. I just throw clothes on.
I mean, I do
don't
too.
think about it.
Yeah. And I used to like throw clothes on and make it look like I didn't think about it.
Yeah, your intention was to make it look like you weren't intentional.
It was still a conscious effort. It was just like in the other way, but
yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I feel as though there's a tide change in music a little bit. I don't know if it's, I mean, because I think like people like Tyler Childers have something to do with it. Like the fact that such a huge portion of the market is not beholden to like radio and beholden to like being delivered popular artists in the same way that they used to through the old methods.
Right.
Like, I don't know, man. I'm sure Tyler doesn't make as much money as like Florida Georgia Line just because of the things that are in place with all that.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I don't think Tyler's hurting for money at all. You know what I'm saying?
I would imagine so.
So like, I don't know. I think Tyler, Sierra, and like even on the pop side, like Phoebe Bridgers, like
Oh yeah.
these people, they're brushing up against the mainstream world. Like Phoebe's touring with fucking Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And Phoebe's like not a radio sensation. She's like a weird independent songwriter.
Right.
And she's brushing brushing up against that world. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, as cynical as one can be about the changes that are taking place in the digital era of art, I think that's interesting. I think that's like maybe a positive thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Gives folks the chance, like 49 Winchester. It gives them the chance to actually have success. To be on big stages. Like they played, what's the place called? The Ryman. With Turnpike Troubadours, which is they're not mainstream at all either, but like it's still giving those guys like a chance to make something out of like what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
But you had said something earlier about like, oh, I need to use social media more or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that like, I guess, what is your relationship with all of it? Or like, what is your, maybe like, where do you find yourself not using it or something? You know what I mean?
If it wasn't for having like to advertise for stuff, or if it wasn't a free mode of advertising, I'd probably just say screw it. I
Same.
didn't want it.
Yep.
But it's so useful to have, and there's that part of me that's like, fuck this, man. I just don't want to do it. But there's also the part of me that's like, if you don't do it, you're not going to have success. And some people I think go overboard with that. They're like, I don't know. There's a guy that I follow, or I was told to follow, and I did, and I'm like, I really don't care for what you're doing. But like saying how active you have to stay to like be relevant. I'm like, I don't care. I do not care. I care a little bit, enough to like advertise for shows, and all that, but I just don't care to like be in somebody's face every single day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what the algorithm says, or what people are saying the algorithm is, which changes apparently all the time. Is that you have to be so active that like people are just seeing you all the time, and it sucks that you have to be. That's like our way of advertising, but
Yeah.
you got to do it. You have to,
Well, there's some people that do that great, and there are some people that it just turns into a thing where I get sick of them.
Yes.
This is another one of the reasons that I continue to harp on this, and I will continue to until we figure it out. But like, there's a handful of stand-up comedians that are just dominating this whole world of podcasting, social media, and then their product.
Yeah.
And like the way that all those three things work together.
Yeah.
We have to figure out, I think, how to do something like that. I think Midland is pretty close to that because they use their social. I think their social media is a good representation of like the mood of their shows, and all of this shit points back to like their ultimate product, which is their shows. But for people like you and I who have maybe, this might sound wrong, but something like we have a product that's especially yours is a little more high energy. Mine is a little more on the like melancholy side.
I see. Yeah.
And it's a little hard to figure out how to exactly represent that in the digital media, the social media
I see
world.
that. Yeah.
Because it's like, you don't want to bum people out all the
Right.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's what we have to figure out. That's what makes it so painful. It's like, it's not the same as representing our product or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe you and I had a conversation about that exact same thing one time. But yeah, like it's the life of musicians or songwriters and all that, and comedians are kind of wild. Like it's very, very similar, but comedians have found a way to like make this happen.
Yeah.
Theo Vaughn, for example. God, dude, that guy.
I love him.
He's so fucking funny, dude. And like, I feel like he's one of those people that there's always this kid in class and like middle school or high school that like was just funny as shit and did not know they were funny. And then they finally realized they were funny. They were like, oh, I can make a career out of this. I think that was Theo. Like he just like doesn't even like try to be funny, but he's just hilarious.
Yeah.
I actually saw him in Charlotte 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was really cool. It was really, really cool.
I really like him, man. He's a good one. I like Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously Rogan has used his he's dominated the platform.
He pretty much created what comedians are doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's like I don't know.
To the point where he's a great example of how I don't think he wasn't doing arenas as a stand-up comedian before.
Yeah.
but the podcast got him so much popularity
Yeah.
that it just turned into him being one of the most relevant comedians, and he's
Yeah.
not even like in the top of that food chain
Right.
as a comedian,
Right.
he just is as a media personality.
Yeah. I didn't know his podcast been going on as long as it has either.
Yeah.
It's been going on for a while.
It's
And
like-
I've only like really known about him having a podcast in the past like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. I think it's been like 14 years or something.
Holy shit, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was cool. I've studied him because, he among the other comedians, they were a big part of why I started this podcast. Was, same as Andrew Schultz's story. I think like Andrew Schultz, some of them guys saw how all that shit was working with Rogan and Bert Kreischer and this network of promotion on the West Coast. So he went and did it in New York, and like it made his career, like it blossomed, and all these comedians started working together to kind of create, more enthusiasm around what they were doing. So I was like, well, fuck, like we could do a similar thing here with music, but we can't be as funny because comedians are funny.
Yeah,
musicians
they're
are
expected
not. Musicians like want to be funny sometimes. And I've seen
songs.
I've seen that some.
Yeah.
Like I've seen musicians that wouldn't shut the fuck up between songs. But so I mean, I think that there's something really special that's going on in that world. Rogan obviously figured it out. A lot of comedians have figured it out, and what you just said is part of the answer to that mystery. Is like their skill of being funny translates perfectly from stand-up comedy to podcast.
Yeah.
We're not going to sit here and be like, you know what, like oak tree, and then you'd be like, well, I'm not enough for your best, or whatever. And I'm like, we can't just write lyrics at each other in the same way that comedians can just be funny with each other.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, in a perfect world, I guess that would kind of be the case.
Yeah. And there's also, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what it means, but it's whatever. It's still fun to just relate to other musicians.
Yeah, it's almost like going to therapy almost. You just get to talk to another musician and
I know that's how I
see what's
feel.
going on. Yeah. Do I have to pay you for this now?
No one else is. So. Shit. Oh shit. What were you just saying? Therapy. Shit. I lost it. I had an idea. I had a thought, and I think I lost it, man. Man, I wonder what it was. I bet it was a good one.
Maybe so. Speaking of comedians, I'm going to see Trevor Wallace tomorrow.
Who?
Trevor Wallace. He's more like popular on. Is that his name?
I don't know. I don't know if it's still recording.
That one. We're actually recording on this little guy down here. Yeah, luckily.
I'm like, you guys, I don't know how long that thing has been up.
Yeah, the computer's being a bitch today.
But we're going to see him at the Orange Pill tomorrow.
Well, that's fun.
He's like, he's more like popular, I guess, with people our age and a little bit younger. He's been a lot of like just dumb stuff on social media sometimes, but he's pretty funny. He's kind of I don't know, his shtick is he's like a punk, and all that. But
Like Billy Strings.
Trevor Wallace is the Billy Strings of the comedy world.
I showed my boss. We were talking about Billy and LJVM and stuff, and she was like, "I don't even know what it looks like." And she pulled up a picture. She said, "He looks like a punk."
Yeah, he has the appearance of a punk, but I guess Trevor Wallace has like the attitude of a punk. You know?
Oh yeah.
Like I don't know, like punk frat boy or like college kid. I don't know. I really don't know how to describe him. But yeah.
I don't know him. I've been exploring Shane Gillis more lately.
I know that name. I actually don't know much about him.
He is so fucking funny. There's so many. Like Joey Diaz, Theo Vaughn. Joey Diaz and Theo Vaughn, I think, are the most surprising, funny version. They can just say the funniest shit.
Yeah.
But Shane is a little more throwback, a little more like written. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know, like a standard stand-up comedian, but he's really fucking funny.
Yeah.
I would recommend checking him out.
I don't know if I'd be capable of a comedian, because those guys, I mean, their set changes in some sort of way, but they tour one like stand-up set for like a year or two.
Yeah.
And I just need like a little bit more, something fresh. At least I can switch my set list. You know, and I guess I can kind of switch their deliver or which order they tell their jokes in and all that. But yeah, it kind of blows my mind just to think about. It makes me think about their writing process, how they come up with stuff. I can never do it. Good on those guys.
Man, I don't know. I think we have more in common with them than it seems.
Yeah.
I don't know if you relate or not, but like they talk. I've heard a few of them talk about how they test material and stuff. And what's so interesting about that is the audience is a much bigger part of testing material in comedy than they are in music.
Yeah.
But like, I definitely have had time. Like, I've definitely had moments where I've taken songs and taken them to a performance, and that's been sort of how I work out certain parts of the song. Like, certain risks I might take with singing. Like, can I do this here? Like, what if I drop the energy here? Shit like that.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, maybe I do. Maybe I don't know if everyone does, but maybe me and like Kike, one of my band members. We were talking about this. He was like, he said to me after a show once, he was like, I think I've learned, the song isn't worked out until we do it in front of people. Like, that's when it starts to get worked out.
Yeah.
I think that's what comedians do too.
Yeah.
It's just a little more obvious because it's laughter instead of silence.
Right. Yeah. Or eventual collapse at the end of the
Yeah.
song. I've kind of taken that perspective in the past year as a musician. It's like you really don't like you were saying, like a song's not really finished until you have performed it and see how an audience does respond to it or see what does work. And that's I've experienced both sides of that with recording the past year, because my band's in a way divided right now, because one guy wants to just go ahead and get stuff out and record it, get stuff out, which he has a great point. You have to stay relative in the market right now. Put singles out. You want to put stuff out, but there's songs that they sound good now, but we could also flesh them out a little bit more by playing live in front of people and seeing what does and does not work, for the song, just by gauging response, or somebody coming up to you after the set being like, man, that one part in Unknown Love or whatever, it was cool. Like, I love that one particular section. You're like, fuck yeah, that's wow, I was going for it. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they are a part of it, and I bet if you took a song on stage and it just fell flat, or you felt awkward doing it, or it felt like the crowd wasn't with you, you might be swayed to like not include that or whatever.
I actually did. I've experienced that, and it almost prevented me from putting a song on a record, but I still did with encouragement from my friend. The first record I was making, he was like, "Man, you should just, even if you don't put it out, just record it, just for the sake of having it." And I may have told you this in the past. This was like the particular song that like everybody's like, "Holy shit, dude! Like we love that one." Like somebody one time was like, "That one brought me to tears," and I'm like, "What?" Like, I was gonna put that on the record, So it almost negatively affected me because in my experience from crowd response, that goes into a different story or thought of, how a song feels live by yourself, or how a song feels live with a band.
Yeah.
That it's two different worlds in a way.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Well, it's fascinating on two levels. One, you made me remember there's a song I've got out floating around right now that's like if I was having that moment in that fucking movie Walk the Line where the record producer was like, play the most important song you would die for, or whatever the fuck he says to Johnny Cash. That would be this song.
Not Walk Hard, it's Walk the Line.
Right. Walk Hard, better movie. I would argue. Johnny Cash, better artist, but Walk Hard is one of the best music movies in existence.
Oh yeah.
This is my song that's like, this one is so far the best capturing of like, I think, my person in a piece of work right now. And I remember when I was being tempted to write that song a few times, my brain was like, oh, I know, it's so personal, and it's so like, it was like making me doubt it. And then but I kept the first line kept coming back out of my mouth when I would play my guitar. But my grandfather's grandfather had hands made out of leather, and I was like, I just kept singing that
Yeah,
line,
you can't let it go.
and I was like, I better just write it and just be done with it.
Yeah.
And then I wrote it, and then I just threw it up on a YouTube video, and it was like it interacting with the rest of the world is what made me realize how much I cared about the song.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have one before that you kind of thought was that way?
I've had plenty of songs that I've like been unnecessarily self-conscious about, you know.
Okay.
And then like, yeah, like other people kind of reinforce them. I can also think of occasions where, on the other side, I can think of occasions where I've written songs that I was like, I'm sure this is a good idea. One is off of a record I put out called Life Lessons, and it was called, I think the song that I was experiencing this with was called Don't Fucking Call Me Baby, #2.
Yeah.
And I was working on it with a band, and we were like, I kept feeling like the energy wasn't quite high enough for me to pull off the song. And I kept trying to explain to them, like, this song is so vulnerable that, like, if we can't figure this out in private, I don't think I'm going to be able to sing it in front of an audience. And
Yeah.
it kind of got to the point where I didn't feel like I could sing it in front of an audience because we couldn't get it to where it needed to be.
Good on you for doing that, because like a lot of the time I've been like, oh, we gotta fill the set. We should just put it there anyway. You know, it's a long enough set. But good on you for doing that. Maybe I should kind of take that perspective.
It was just such a. If it was a different kind of song, I probably would have done what you do. You know,
Yeah.
if it was one that I could just do anyway. But this
Yeah.
was like, this was a particular project that was extremely revealing about me and like things that I ordinarily wouldn't say on stage and a microphone in front of people. You know,
Yeah.
so it was just like too much.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You were talking about that and what that last part. Shit, what was that last part that you were talking about on that subject?
Oh well, I don't even remember now.
Yeah, you were. You're. Damn it, damn it. This has happened to me twice now. I need a pen and paper to like write down notes as we go. But anywho, point being, yeah, I think it's a more interactive process than it seems like on the surface. You did also say something about touring a little bit ago, and it made me wonder something like. So recently, an old friend of mine reached out to me, and we talked a little about music and about the change that takes place. And for him, he was like, we were talking about what it means to be a full-time musician, the pressure that there is to like separate it from maybe the idea of hobby or passion, like it is when you start out,
Yeah.
pleasure,
Yeah.
and take it to this place where you're like, no matter what day it is, what time it is, when I've agreed to play, like I have to play and my mood has to be catered to the audience and all this shit. And
Yeah.
I've been confronting that a lot lately because I'm trying to decide, like, well, see, I'm really trying to challenge my habitual language around how I talk about what I'm doing with music. But so rather than saying I am trying to whatever,
You are.
I am like,
You watched Star Wars recently, haven't you?
I haven't. No.
There's no try. There's only do.
I think that's a good statement. Does that Yogi say that?
Yeah.
Is it the baby one?
I wish. That'd
Yeah.
be cool if he talked.
Well, so yes, there is no try. So I am. I'm working toward now touring way more aggressively. But
Cool.
The thought does come up. It's like I've never really been on the tour. I've never been on the road for like that many days, like
Yeah.
doing the same show in the way that you commented on, like wanting variation in the show. So I wanted to ask you about that, like what you picture, I guess, what you would want out of the road. What do you want out of the road?
Huh. I actually talked about this a little bit on the way down here. I when it comes to venues, I think the biggest I really want to get, if anything ever happened, and I was like playing stadiums, that's cool, whatever. Like I don't have to have it, but I think it's cool just to go and experience different towns and all that. I'd love to be able to just play like just straight up clubs every time, But it's such an adventure to actually just go out to a different town. You don't know anybody. You may not know anybody at all. You know, and we're very fortunate that we can do that. And yeah, just I guess what I want on the road is to be able to show my talent and relate to people that I've never met before, and if they like it, they like it, and if they don't, well, you know, go to the next town, I guess. But I do want to be on the road a little bit more. I don't know if it's going to happen much this year. We're kind of like balancing out me booking shows and then our agent booking shows, or then there comes the struggle of band members needing time off because they tour with other acts and all that. So May and June are looking like they're going to be more like solo months for me. So I need to hop on that because it's getting a little close to time.
That was the second thing. Remember that. That
Okay.
was the second thing you said.
Touring June, May.
Solo. Solo different than band.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You want to go to that?
Well, we can stay on this first.
Okay.
I really like that you said adventure, so I don't want to
Oh
interrupt.
yeah. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it can be kind of hard having to tour and be on the road with guys. You have all these different personalities come together, and you're going to be in a van together, or you're going to be in a car together for multiple days. And we've only done like a 4-day, 5-day tour, and that's the most I've ever done. The other guys in the band have been on the road for a couple weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So I'm a little less seasoned on the road, I guess, in the band. But it's being on the road can be just challenging. You know, it's a very dysfunctional family because we all do want different things out of this, and I can't be too upset if somebody doesn't want to be a part of that, because you know it's when it comes down to it, this is like my project, you know, and I'm fortunate enough to have people come in and back me up and support that, but it's not always what they necessarily want to do, or you know, because I've gone through a few band members in the past 2 years and all that, so it's being on the road has its challenges, like big time, but it's that's kind of cool too. Like you never know what to expect, and as long as we can get to the show on time and play and all that, and make friends with folks, and you know, chat with people who never would have had the opportunity to chat with, that's pretty cool, I think.
It is, man.
You know?
Well, and you know, this rings back to a little statement made earlier in our conversation, but like that's another reason I think that ideally you want touring to get easier over time, you know, because
Yeah.
for when you're in your 20s and your early 30s, you know, being in a van or whatever with your friends and leaving a show at like 11 or 12 or even later and driving, you know, 30 minutes to a hotel or to a friend's house or whatever. Like that's something you can do when you're younger, and something that gets a lot hard to do, I hear, as you get older.
Yeah.
And luckily I'm still, I can bear that stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, like that's another reason to add to the pressure of the clarity around what it is you want to do, you know, because
Yeah.
like, it'd be nice if by the time you're 35, 38,
Yeah.
that like the comfort that is available to you for touring, you know,
Yeah.
scales up a little bit.
We just had somebody offer us a hotel room after a show the other day, and I was like, holy shit. Awesome. It's like, you know, and with a contract, I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
Oh man, that's great.
That's the best.
That does feel really good. We used to play a place in Pigeon Forge, or in maybe it was Gatlinburg. I think it was Gatlinburg proper.
Okay.
And not only did we get a hotel room in like a shitty little motel, but
Yeah.
they would give us dinner. Like after
Oh,
our set,
man.
we'd have a bag and we'd take it to the hotel, and it had like spaghetti and bread in it. And we were like, "This is the life." Like,
Yeah. Can I have this every show?
we have made it, boys.
Spaghetti and breadsticks. Eating big time.
Yeah, didn't even get to like tell them what we wanted. They just said, "Here's your dinner." You fucking animals.
Oh man, that's pretty funny.
Fun times, man. So
Yeah.
so you were talking about, you know, so I was wondering if that development process, we were talking about developing songs with an audience, and that was what I wanted to ask about. Was like it seems like different worlds to do that with a group of 3 or 4 other guys versus yourself. And like, I don't know, do you notice a stark difference, I guess, between those two versions of you when you're working with an audience?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It's funny because when I first started out, I was mainly solo, like primarily, and songs were completely different than they are now. Because so I think that's just going to happen over time, regardless. Just to keep yourself engaged and people who listen to you engaged because they want to hear the same version of whatever 5 years from now. I think it's important to kind of switch stuff up. But on top of that, songs that I played solo when I presented them to a band have just turned into a different beast. It's crazy how it happens. Like the song Florida Girl that I have, it started out as a sad breakup song and all that, and it turned into like I don't know, it sounds like a '80s like anthem. That I feel like I'm about to sound like Will Ferrell on Talladega Nights talking about no, who's his buddy in the movie, Cal Naughton Jr. I feel like Cal Naughton Jr. describing his idea of Jesus right now. I imagine like somebody listening to Florida Girl or like in like a red like Corvette smoking a cigarette, like their hair blowing in the wind. That's like the idea of what I get when somebody listens to that song.
Hell yeah.
But it started out as just a sad song, So I think it's kind of cool to like have a band back you up because it does change the life of the song. It might make it a little more approachable or palatable for somebody that wouldn't necessarily want to come listen to me solo sing a sad song, But then you get the I think it just changes the energy behind it, And I love doing both. There's times I'd rather do solo shows, but that does having the band back me up changes the way I perform it solo still, because I practice with them almost weekly, and I just have that in my muscle memory and in my head about how the song goes. So maybe that's something I should work on is to sit back and practice how I did write the song solo, and what would maybe work better for it as a solo.
It's cool to have both, but
yeah.
it is such an interesting thing to lead a band and to have the leadership ego of the band leader.
Yeah.
But then also like submit the material to the creative process with other people.
Yeah.
Like let them have space in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's something I still have to work on, man, because in a way we've just had band member changes in the past year or two, and then we've had fill-ins because our bass player Everett had a brain abscess and he had to be gone for a few months.
Damn.
So yeah, it blew my mind, dude. One of the craziest things that's ever happened within a group I've been playing with. But it's people get attached to the way that they play stuff, or they have their own perspective on how something should be. Well, if you're a new person coming into the band, you're going to have to kind of submit to how it already is, or the band has to kind of be like, oh, that actually works a little bit better. We should kind of submit to this style, and it's such a weird thing to balance out with what we've been doing. Ideally you would, well, not ideally. I think what would make it easier is have studio musicians play. Be like, hey, this, then the new person comes in and be like, you play it like this. But, I think if they're a creative type, which most, musicians and all that are, they're not just machines. They want to kind of add their own taste to it as well, which is, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's a matter, I guess what I need to do is really keep in mind what I'm going for, and also take their opinion on in that, and take it into consideration with writing, because we Just for example, we started out with a guy who kind of does have a little bit more of a not mainstream sort of sound, but he would fit in pretty well in Nashville. Is what I'll get at. And then the next guy that came in after he left is he went to school for music, so he's not going to be the type that's going to just sit there and play with like what a studio guy would.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not in his nature to do that because he did go to school for music and he wants to be creative with it, which is I think great. There were times when I was like, oh, I think you're doing a little too much, you know. And then he and I, he's actually in the band again now, but in between him being gone for a while and now there was another guy who came in and he just straight up wants to play a honky tonk. Nothing else at all. And I'm like, man, I really do like that. Like it's a really good tone and like it's some of the songs it's very fitting. But we're a roots rock band. It's not it doesn't have to be honky tonk all the time. We want some pretty stuff, like some very flowy kind of like I don't know. Some swells and all that, which we kind of talked about, but he still he stuck to his guns. He's playing straight up honky tonk, and but I do think we have found the guy that does match the style. Who was the second guitarist that we had originally. It just took a little bit of me not being hard headed and him not being hard headed. So you know, that's how teams work, right?
That's how it works.
Yeah,
It's a real delicate dance. It's very interesting.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, some guys that lead bands, they're just like, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
My name is this thing.
Yeah.
And you don't like it, go play for somebody else.
Right.
Some do, like, I think I get a little too passive about it because I
tend to be as well.
I used to play drums for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it used to honestly feel, it was extremely, now some of this was me being immature as a player.
Yeah.
But it used to feel very limiting and like frustrating to have sort of what I could do with that instrument kind of confined too much. It often felt like it was too confined for my honestly I was probably just not being great about playing for other people, you know. Like that's just the truth. But at the time in my mind I was convinced that it was like, no, I should have the say about this because I'm like more of an expert with this instrument than these other people are, or whatever. And, you know, so I don't think I had the most cooperative attitude, but in my band, I've often tried to just like give that space entirely to people that play with me.
Yeah.
Just like my attitude is often, I'll tell you if something just doesn't work for me at all, but otherwise just, I want you to explore your role as deeply as you can.
Yeah.
And like, I stand by that. I think that the people who play with me are happy for that reason, but I think sometimes all that I'm sacrificing is maybe my own sort of sense of what would make the song best, and sometimes it might just be whatever. Sometimes it might be advantageous for me to be like more a part of that process.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But every band's different.
Yeah, I think it works both ways.
Yeah.
In my experience, the band that I kind of played with in 2018 and 19 is the whole just like dynamic of the band is 100% different. The band that I was playing with originally, we never practiced ever. We just got up and just played, and there was something like really just cool about that because it was just a loose, fun, more like a punk rock attitude set, which is like. In a way, I still kind of want that. But you also do have to sound good.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a good standard.
So, you know, when I first started playing again with this particular band back in 2021, the biggest thing people would tell me was, man, this band's tight now, you know? Because the last one was just like, we were all over the place. It was... Which I loved. If no offense to any of the guys that played in my band now, or like guitarists, but if I could have Nick Bullens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he played with me for a while.
Is that how I first knew of you?
I don't know, man. I actually knew about you. I was in high school. Um, I think the first time I ever met you, I came to your show at Good Times Barbecue. I
Huh.
want to say.
Okay.
And then, yeah, yeah. I forgot the name of that record. It's the one you had long hair.
Winter to winter. Or
Back in
Feathers?
2020.
Oh,
Or 2020, or 2012, sorry.
2012. That probably was the winter to winter.
Yeah, that a whole. I feel like a little fangirl right now. You were
Fan
playing,
man.
yeah. I feel like, but I took this whole group of friends out to Cranky's. You were playing there with what's the name of the band? It was a duo. Genuine.
The genuine.
Yeah. I pulled that whole group of friends. I was like, we're going to see Tyler down at Craigie's tonight. And we showed up, and yeah, it was a big event.
That's badass. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you would take. So you'd like to have Nick Bullen's energy again?
Oh yeah, I've never meshed so well with somebody on stage. It's like I don't know. It's like what you hear about musicians all the time. You're always like, you're not saying anything, but you're also saying something at the same time. It's like
Yeah.
your brainwaves are connecting, and I can show you videos later of like he and I performing, and it felt right. You know what I mean? It just felt good. If we were a little more practiced, we might have more success in what we were doing at the time. But it was very loose. But
I hear you.
yeah, at that point, like I what people would say about my shows is they were like, man, I just love the energy you have, because I would be all over the stage. Now with the band I have now, a little bit tighter, and we are tighter as in physical space on the stage, and tighter as in like the sound as well. But I'm a little bit more. Not I wouldn't say rigid. I'm still. If I don't feel good playing a song, I don't want to play it. You know, I want to have a little bit of flow. If I'm enjoying it, the audience is going to enjoy it as well. So
Yeah.
I want to have that energy, but it's nothing compared to what it was in 2018. Like like I said, it was very like punk rock attitude, like a bunch of stomping, a bunch of like headbanging and stuff. I kind of miss that, but you know, maybe it's a little bit of a maturity thing too. You know. or age in general.
Well, there's one I relate to that. The old band, the trio, my trio used to have a little bit of that as well. Just like, and like I was saying, like when we rehearse songs, we kind of even still to maintain some of that surprise and energy. We'll get the song to where we know it, and like know it, and maybe we're not going to fuck it up. But then we take it on stage, and then like that's where it really starts to become more solid or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's how we maintain a little bit of that spontaneousness, but spontaneity. But it's not. It doesn't quite compare to how it does when you're on the younger side of that stuff.
No.
But I saw a video of you not too long ago. The stage did have more people on it, but what really caught my attention about it was you didn't have an instrument in hand or anything. You were singing.
Yeah.
And like. You had a lot of energy behind what you were doing.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a side of Will that's pretty interesting right there.
I've never done anything like that in my life. I was actually sitting in. So that was New Year's Eve at Boone Saloon, and we were the opening band that night. We kind of the band that I opened up for. They opened up for us last year at New Year's Eve. So hopefully that becomes a tradition. It's going to be Bradley Turner's band and Will Easter's band doing New Year's Eve at Saloon, because I would do that for ages. I feel like it's just a good time. But he ended up asking me to sit in with him for a song. We did Mississippi Queen, and I wasn't I wasn't playing an instrument or anything, and I was like, man, that was just like, it was freeing in a way. You know what I mean? It gives me an opportunity to captivate the audience in a way that I've never tried, but. You know, I was able to attempt something, and it, I don't know, it felt pretty right.
A lot of people never do that.
Yeah. And I told my guys after that, I was like, man, if we ever want to do a song like that again, like I'm totally fine with that, because in a way it's my instrument I'm a singer-songwriter. I, by no means, at this current moment in time, am a great musician at all. Very little knowledge about theory. I know 3 chords in the truth, pretty much. And in a way, I kind of hide behind the guitar at times. So I guess that's the reason it felt kind of free, just to be like,
Yeah.
all right, here we go. And I don't know, I like took on this like persona. I felt like before I got on stage, I was like, you gotta get ready. I like would sit there, I didn't really talk to anybody, just like wanted to like be in the zone and just have fun with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that showed through. It's very interesting because, like, really, I know what it felt like before I ever did that, and like the slow steps of because for me it wasn't like that where I could be like, okay, I'm gonna do this. It'll be I'm gonna embrace it and go into persona mode. It took me like a lot of work to be able to finally put the guitar down and sort of relax.
Yeah.
And I got to where I could sort of relax, but still, I don't think to the degree that I saw you do in that video. Like, I thought that was really, really interesting to see. So, do you think you'll make it a point to explore that more?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We're actually, the band's getting together to practice this week for the first time in a while, and with the new member, new/old member, and I'd already mentioned that to some of the guys anyway, and so I don't know if it's going to happen this week at practice, but we'll definitely try that. It's kind of, dude, it's really cool. We have an itinerary for practice now. We're kind of starting, baby steps of trying to be professional, right? Because right now, what we do is we just go through and practice the song, the set list. But now it can be like throughout the week, we can kind of add to the itinerary. We have an Excel spreadsheet. We're like, hey, we should maybe work on this and this. So that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll add that to the itinerary.
Dude, there's like, being professional is underrated as fuck.
It's pretty helpful.
Yeah, it's awesome. And like, if you're trying to be a professional musician, you might as well be
try to be professional.
Yeah. I listened to like some audiobooks and stuff, and I don't remember what this was from because it was more like a sample. Like, I don't know. I find myself in all sorts of corners of YouTube listening to things. But one thing I listened to exactly argued that point was like, whatever you're pursuing, become a professional at it.
Yeah.
And this is a trait I notice in some people, especially like professional musicians I might hang with. It's like, they know what's happening in our industry. They know what's happening like in the market. Mm-hmm. They know what people are talking about. Like, they have opinions about every, like they have a strategic mind for the way that artistry works or whatever. And it's like, it's just so much cooler. Yeah, I don't know. There's something really cool about being that focused on
what you're doing.
Music.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I think Sam Foster's really good at that. Mm. He strikes me just the way how he posts stuff on social media. Great job at that. How he stays very active in the community here in the Triad and all that. I don't know. He's the first person that kind of came to mind.
Yeah, I like Sam.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a really cool guy.
He is he was the inspiration for me because I didn't even know about Red Barn Radio or whatever, and I saw him play that. Started looking into it, and I thought it was super cool and on brand. And so I took a cue from him for a new marketing opportunity that turned out to be like super, like fun for me and stuff. But yeah, I really like what Sam's doing. Sam's like one of the artists that are younger than me that are like in the area that I'm just like, cool, man. Like, that's some shit that I'm on board with right there. Yeah.
And he had his old project and all that, and not to knock that, but I just love what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
I think it's more Sam. You know what I mean? It's more of his sound.
Yeah.
And all that, which is really cool. And he's kind of had like a little bit of a transformation in the past 2 years and all that. He got a lot more serious. He got a lot more professional about what he's doing, and which I think is great. Like really good for him.
Which he told me a little bit about that when he was on the show last year, and just some of the inspiration for that transformation, some of the different ways that it was, like sort of embraced, physically and health wise and all sorts of shit.
I think I want to say that's one of the first episodes I listened to.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like talking to him.
Yeah.
Actually, y'all, that was funny because y'all were here the same day, but like an hour apart.
Oh yeah.
So me and Sam were kind of like wandering around the yard because I thought you were going to be here at like 3 or something because
Oh, yeah.
I misremembered, and then I looked
Yeah.
at our messages and we had said like 4:30 or something.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, Sam, I was wrong. We only gonna be here for a while." So anyway, we got extra time to hang out
Oh,
that
cool.
day.
Yeah.
Just walk around the yard and look
Yeah.
at lizards and stuff.
I could
Can't you just picture it?
see Sam looking at lizards.
There was so I've got this bathtub in the backyard. That sounds weird. It sounds weirder than it is, but there's a bathtub back there, and there was this lizard in it, and I was like, that lizard's been in there for like a while, and he was like, oh, I can get out, and I was like, I don't think it can, and I went back out a few days later, and it was like, please let me the fuck out, so I finally tipped the tub over and let it out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Man, back in I guess 2019, he and I would not get in any trouble, but we had a few wild nights after shows in Winston. Sam and I did.
Yeah.
We would always end up at Waffle House. So
Hell yeah.
Waffle House over on what's the road?
Haynes Mill.
No, not that one. Peters Creek.
Peters Creek. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. We would always end up there after any time we were hanging out in Winston, regardless where we were at.
It's
what
so
we were doing.
funny to hear that and picture it, and also to hear his story because he seems such a mild mannered guy and like
Yeah.
a chill dude.
No.
But I guess I haven't partied at Waffle House in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Where did y'all used to play? Did y'all used to play shows together in Winston?
We've only played a few shows together, actually. The first time I played the main room at the Ramcat was with him and when he was with Whiskey Foxtrot. And then they came to Saloon and played with us.
Nice.
And then we've done, with his separate project, we've done something at High Rock Outfitters. I think really cool room. I think
Oh, yeah.
Lexington has a lot of potential to be like a really cool town. Not to say it's not, but
It could be cooler.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and High Rock is a part of that. Like High Rock is the coolest thing in Lexington. that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah.
It's like this area. It's like all the potential in the world, a bunch of cool history. You
Yep.
know, it's got people, but
Yeah.
it's just so depressed.
Yeah.
And maybe if it could just gentrify a little bit, it
Yeah.
would be in better shape. You know?
Oh yeah. Where was I going with that? Oh, where he and I used to play. I won't say that's all. We've done a few shows together, but I would either go to his shows or he would come to mine and all that. But yeah, good times with him.
So if you could pick your dream co-bill, what would it look like?
Anybody in the world?
Let's do it like they did with that Spotify thing. So let's say you're day 3 of a major festival. Let's say day 2.
Oh, that's a lot.
You're headlining, but you get
I'm
to
headlining.
choose like 4 bands.
Can I bring him back from the dead?
Yeah, anybody.
All right, cool. Definitely John Prine.
John Prine. Let's say you got to pick 5.
Okay.
All right, so you got John Prine.
Yeah, John Prine. I'm gonna throw Outcast on there as well.
Hell yeah! I love that. That's so badass.
Yeah, it's gonna be like Bonnaroo. It's no specific genre. I guess I'd have to throw some light to my liking for metalcore and hardcore. I'd throw Norma Jean on there. I think. I've
Okay.
listened to them a lot recently. Some of their older stuff. Doc would definitely be on there, and then what genre have I not really hit? Man, Modest Yahoo as well.
Huh?
I've recently kind of rediscovered him. I really like listening to Modest Yahoo when I go to the gym.
Hell yeah!
I really like that because he's just like, I don't know, positive. Like most songs are positive, or like talking about the struggle of finding light and stuff. So yeah,
I love his
the
bill.
Ramcat one time, or
No.
I guess when it was Ziggy still.
Really?
Yeah, like won tickets and
That's fun.
yeah, and like we just hung out.
Where did y'all hang out?
He was smoking a cigarette outside, and I was like, well, I was sitting there like talking to like my friend that I was with, saw her friend from NC State, and she was chatting with her, and he just walks outside and starts smoking a cigarette, and I was like, what's up, dude? And like for like, and then everybody like saw he was there, like swarmed him. But
Yeah.
I still sat there and hung out for like 30 minutes. And then I ran into him at Bull's Tavern of all places, like 2 weeks later.
So ridiculous.
Yeah. Also, I guess they've closed since
They sure
the last
did.
time we spoke on a podcast.
They sure did.
I did like that spot quite a bit.
I'm so you mentioned that, and it's funny. I remember a few years when I started writing, when I started freelancing for the Relish. One day they hit me up and they were like, "Oh, will you write an article on this guy, Chris Stapleton?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Okay, we'll put you in touch with this blah blah blah." So there was this thing. We line it up for him to call me so I can interview him. So he calls me, and I interview him, and it's very exciting. Like
Yeah.
I went through the entire interview just acting like I was just a normal ass freelance whatever,
Yeah.
but I was indulging in any question I wanted to.
Right.
And I remember at one point I said to him like, okay, I'm gonna ask like a more abstract question, if you don't mind. And he was like, "Well, you're doing a pretty good job so far." And I was like, "I guess you're annoyed with me, but I don't care. I'm just gonna fucking whatever." So I asked him all this stuff, and at the end was like, "By the way, like I'm an aspiring artist myself, and like you're an inspiration, I think, to a lot of independent guys because like you're cool and you're like legit." And so anyway, it's badass. And he was
Yeah.
like, "Word." So anyway,
Word. That was your probably one.
so I was all thrilled by that, and
Yeah.
then I got press tickets to go see him at Ziggy's back in the day.
Holy shit.
So I went to that, and then, like, after the show, it just was bonkers, and I was like, I don't think I'll be able to cross paths with him or whatever.
Yeah.
I go home, and that night I see that Danielle Bull has posted a picture of her with Stapleton, and I was like, everybody gets lucky one time. Then Dave Chappelle at some point came to town and played the place across the street, the UNCSA, but
Millennium Center?
no, the other one, the fucking. I can't believe I can't think of the name, but the place where like the symphony plays.
Okay.
Anyway, Dave played that spot and then goes to Bulls, and then I see a picture of Danielle with Dave Chappelle, and I'm just like, what the fuck? How do all these famous
Modest
people
Yahoo
go
shows
to
up
Bulls?
in her bar.
Exactly. What the fuck?
Oh, yeah.
How do they all just know to go to Bulls? Like, what is this shit?
Right?
But so, I mean, I guess if he got swarmed, y'all didn't get to talk very much.
Not much. Probably the coolest thing to happen was the guy that opened up for him, like brought his guitar outside. Just I don't know, he just did, and he was singing like Modest Yahoo started singing, and then like I was like harmonizing with Modest Yahoo like in this like circle. It was
That's so wild.
yeah.
Did he, when you saw him at Bulls, then what happened?
Oh, like he like recognized me because like I like looked over and I was like, "Is that Modest Yahoo?" He was like, I was like, what the shit.
Why was he here again?
I don't know. I really somebody said that he like went to a Winston-Salem Dash game and then like went to Bulls.
So weird.
But there has to be more of a reason. Like
Yeah.
maybe Winston's cool enough for Modest Yahoo.
Maybe he left something at Ziggy's and he had to come back and get it.
That could have been the case.
We did that in Georgia once. My bassist left his bass. I had to drive down there and get it.
Oh my god, dude! Can you just mail this back? I did that. I left my bag twice at venues.
Damn.
The first was because it was just a terrible show and I got trashed because of it. It was one of our first. It was in that first summer of this band that I play with now. Started playing together. It was our first time in Richmond. It was this place called. I'll leave the name out of it. But the crowd. It was this big place. I guess I'm gonna give it away if I say what the place is. It's not a music venue, but it's a bowling alley, and just people were not into it at all. Like, but the place is so damn big that they did like there was no way they could have been into it. And it was more along the lines of a crowd that like wanted to hear mainstream country. It seemed like
Yeah.
and not what we're doing. And I was like, fuck this. We just got paid terrible, blah, 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 blah. And nobody's into it. And I just got trashed. I used that tab to my, you know, my highest ability, I guess. But and then I left my bag there and had to call back the next day and be like, hey, can I get my bag? Because we were like going somewhere after that, and we'd gotten like, no, they were not open. They weren't open yet because I was like, I left my bag in the venue. They weren't open, so I had to call them, leave a message, and I emailed them just to cover all my bases. And we were heading to Raleigh the next day, and I just had to go buy some stuff, and then they mailed it to me. And then I left my not because I was trashed. I think it's just because we all got to talking after the show, but I left my my bag at the Whitewater Center as well.
Oh yeah,
down in Charlotte, and
man, I played that last year.
oh yeah, I thought I saw your name on that. That's when we played. Did you play in the summer or when?
I played like Memorial Day.
Oh shit, dude!
It was a bad decision.
Oh, yeah.
It was. It wasn't the best fit, I guess. So because my band is a little milder,
Yeah.
and you know, some people dug it, but what was weird was, I don't know if you had this experience, but they got that lawn right in front of the stage. I was on the
Yeah.
bigger stage
Yeah.
there because there was just a shit ton of people there,
Yeah.
and it
Was
wasn't.
two stages there?
Yeah, they I guess have a smaller stage that they use sometimes.
Okay.
I think in the summer they use the bigger one a lot, or at least I don't know, because I was on. Like some of my friends came to see, and they were like, "We saw like who was it?" They were like, "We saw Sam Bush on this stage," and I was like, "Okay, so I guess they don't always use this stage. I guess
Okay.
they have like
Interesting.
another one."
I didn't know that.
But like they got that lawn in the front, and it's like Memorial Day, and so there's like 500 or more people there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was packed. It was packed out pretty good. We get rolling, everything's fine, but then like, it wasn't that big of a deal, man. But like this one guy with like a shitty half sleeve was throwing frisbee with all these kids and throwing footballs and stuff. But like, you know, so basically, like if I'm the stage and this space in front of me is the lawn where all these people are, the kids are like right up against the stage,
Oh,
and he's
yeah.
throwing the football like
At
toward
them.
the stage.
Oh wow.
And so I'm just like, your depth perception is a little weird when you're on stage, and
Yeah.
every time I'm just like, is there a football going to hit
Yeah.
me? Is there a football going to hit my bassist? Like,
Right.
what the fuck is about to happen? Why do they have to do this right in front of us?
Right.
Why can't they just do this like in a space that's not in everybody's view
Right.
of us trying to do a show right now?
Right.
And so I did the first set, muscled my way through it, and then went over to the sound guys like, is there anything we can do about this shit? Like, can we ask them anything? And he was like, no, it's like, they come here all the time. This is your first time here. I was like, good point,
Yeah.
but fuck, this is very annoying.
Yeah.
And they did it all through my second set,
Oh
and
my
kids were
gosh.
running around all through it. And, it was cool because I was getting paid well, and there was all these
Yeah.
people there, and I had compliments coming my way, during the set, like, or in between sets, like, man, I
Yeah.
really like this song. I could see that there were people that gave a shit, but
Yeah.
just the whole football thing was such a distraction that it was impossible for me to enjoy the set.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I see that. Yeah, that's a pretty wild place. Just the amount of stuff that goes on there is kind of crazy because they have the rafts
Yeah,
and everything, zip lines and
food and the
Yeah.
bars.
yeah.
It is actually a really fucking cool place.
Oh, yeah.
I would hang out there.
Yeah.
And I would play there again. I just like, that was like one of them occasions where I wish I'd have got on the mic and just been like, hey, can you
Yeah.
stop throwing a football toward the stage maybe? Like, I know it's not my fucking spot to
Right.
make that call,
Yeah.
but it's just it's such an absurd, like and they told me the story when Tyler Childers played there and all them people that were there, I don't know, did they tell you that story?
No.
It was like they booked him right before he popped,
Yeah.
and they didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And then he showed up, and like, I think they told me like 20,000 people showed up because it was like cheap and shit.
Holy shit.
Totally overran the place. Like,
Yeah.
didn't have the facilities in place for nearly that many people. Like, people out in the woods, people all over the place. And Like,
Oh my god, dude, that's insane.
yeah. And they said like, if or no, sorry, that was the end of that story. But given that is the case, I mean, could you imagine Sam Bush or Tyler Childers
Yeah.
or
Trampled by turtles.
Travel by Turtles,
Yeah.
and somebody throwing a goddamn football toward this, like
Yeah.
all through the show?
Yeah.
It's just an absurd thing to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that. I don't know. Yeah. Hindsight, maybe you should have said something.
I definitely should have. I definitely should have. Well, it sounds like you have a pretty good top 5 there for a good festival. So
Oh yeah.
I hope someday you can get the technology needed to bring these people back and to put on this event.
Yeah, I guess 2 of those guys are dead. One day.
So I guess we can start to wrap on this note, but obviously this won't do any good to promote your show for tonight. But you're playing in Winston tonight,
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Playing at Anchor Coffee. Yeah, good time.
Yeah.
Really cool spot if you do live in the Triad or visiting. Go check it out. We're playing at Boone Saloon on St. Patrick's Day. And the next day we're doing Sierra Nevada. And we're also going to be on WCW to promote for those 2 shows on Wednesday. So check that out online. And we're doing a run through Virginia. The following week we're going to do Martin's in Roanoke, Dogtown in Florida, then Wolf Hill that Saturday.
Hell
And
yeah.
if you guys want to fill a date in anywhere in Virginia, we can do that too. Just hit me up on my website or my booking agent. That's on the website too. And then a few other things. I can look at my calendar. But yeah, if you do want to find some stuff to come see, just on the website and calendar and all that. So WillEasterMusic.com. Spotify is Will Easter. Instagram is Will Easter Music. And Facebook is Will Easter as well.
You know what I like is that you knew all that shit off your head. That was very professional.
Yes. I got an itinerary and I know my links.
You know your dates. That's bad. Nobody knows their dates. That's crazy. Will Easter, my distant cousin. Thank you for
That's right.
Thank you for coming over again. Very glad to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
And yeah, I hope you get really famous and shit.
Me too. Somewhat. To a certain extent.
All right.
Cool.